2023 is at an end, and it's time for the Hollywood trades to look back upon the year and see which studio fared the best and the worst. For Disney, it did not go well. The industry trades exist in a symbiosis with the movie studios. While they first and foremost act as studio mouthpieces, there are times when they do some actual journalism, or when the studios are pitted against each other in the end of summer or end of year rankings, in which case some toes will get stepped on. Traditionally, Disney has no objection to this, as they have a history of ending at the very top of these rankings. Not this year though. In their feature story, Box Office Report Card, grading Disney, Warner Brothers and other studios on 2023 movies, Variety begun their ranking with Disney, which is bad because their list goes from worst to best, meaning Disney came in at the rock bottom. That is something the Bob Iger company is not used to. It's not just what was written about Disney specifically, even the lead up to the ranking was bad news for Disney. Variety writes, studios were finally rewarded for bucking the overly familiar and embracing the new and novel. Remarkably, the top 3 movies of the year were original properties. Sure, Barbie is based on the world-famous doll, Mario is arguably video games' greatest mascot, and J. Robert Oppenheimer is a real person who changed the course of history. So even if they weren't whole-cloth creations, these movies weren't sequels or part of pre-existing film franchises. And, on paper, none were foregone box office winners. Those words should haunt Disney right there, because these are very specifically the kinds of movies Disney do not do, which demonstrate that their formula for success is no longer working. Variety continues, there are always inevitable bumps, and 2023 will be remembered as the year superheroes lost their Midas touch at the box office. I'll get back to why that might be later. Beyond the embarrassment of The Marvels and The Flash, there was plenty of red ink spilled from Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny and Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. The misfires of Harrison Ford's 5th go-around as the swashbuckling adventurer and Tom Cruise's latest bout as globe-trotting spy Ethan Hunt were particularly shocking, because not only were they 2 of the most expensive movies ever made, but they were etched onto the release calendar as guaranteed successes, only to wildly miss expectations. After that general setup, in which 2 of the 4 named high-profile flops were Disney movies, Variety gets into Disney specifically. Among Disney's highs, Variety lists Guardians of the Galaxy Part 3, which is the only Disney movie this year not to lose money. They also, disingenuously, added The Little Mermaid and Elemental in this column, even though none of them have any business being there. The only reason I can imagine that Variety would do that is so they won't piss off the people within Disney that they have to retain a working relationship with too much, and also that The Little Mermaid in particular is a golden calf for many in Hollywood. I mean it, they are so sensitive about that movie. To illustrate what I mean, let's revisit our coverage from when the opening weekend numbers were in. And yes, as always, I am going somewhere with it. One of the justifications for the increased emphasis of diversity and inclusion in Disney's live-action remakes, as well as a whole host of other productions, is to reflect what the world actually looks like, so more people can see themselves in it, and therefore go see the movie in question. Well, the world outside of North America just squashed that argument, because The Little Mermaid earned less than $70 million in the entire rest of the world, despite opening in most major markets. That's no mere underperformance, that's worldwide rejection from which there is no coming back. Outside of North America, The Little Mermaid is dead in the water. That is why I have no qualms about labeling this movie as an underperformer, which is destined to be a flop. It simply didn't open big enough in North America, and it won't earn anything to speak of anywhere else, and that is fine. If this were any other movie, from any other studio, the entirety of the entertainment media complex would have had no issue in admitting that, ripping off the band-aid as it were, and move on. In this particular case though, the cognitive dissonance of doing that would just have been too great. Instead of just admitting that the movie underperformed in North America and bombed pretty much everywhere else, the entertainment media complex ran cover for it, which was done in primarily two ways. The first way is to soften the blow. This begins with pretending that the numbers are actually good, hiding behind some bullcrap metrics like this being the 5th biggest Memorial Day opener in history, while conveniently ignoring that the other 4 cost less to make and open when ticket prices weren't as inflated as now. And then from there, gently let people know that this is actually pretty bad.
So there's still some hope. There's still a sliver of hope for The Little Mermaid to join the $1 billion club because, well, domestically it's on par with Aladdin, but worldwide, unfortunately, it is not. But considering that Disney's live-action remakes have consistently joined the $1 billion club as of late, it would not be great for The Little Mermaid if it failed to do so. However, I think Disney would be happy with a worldwide total of, at least if it was over 700 million, and they would be ecstatic with anything over 800 million, considering how well the movie will likely play down the line on Disney+. But to be honest, as I said with this debut, I'm seeing more of a 6 or maybe even a 5 in front of The Little Mermaid's global total. But I certainly hope that's not the case. That would be bad.
Right in line with Grace Randolph's worst case scenario, the movie did indeed end up with a 5 in front of it at 569 million worldwide, which indeed is bad. The same is true for Pixar's Elemental, so both of those movies rightfully belong in the lows column, along with literally every other Disney movie this year except for Guardians of the Galaxy Part 3. But even that is bad, as the one person behind that success is not merely working for the competition, but running it. With that, let's get into the grading. Grading Disney a C+, which I have to say is generous, Variety proceeds to write, "Oh, how the mighty have fallen." Yes, they did indeed write that, just look at the screen. But so as not to hurt too many feelings within Disney, they quickly added, well, relatively speaking of course, Disney is still a leader in terms of market share. Still softening the blow, they then proceed to write, after a stunning box office streak in 2019 that will perhaps never be replicated, Disney showed the cracks in its once invincible armor. Only one movie, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, was an unmitigated hit. And here comes the bullshit copium, the participation award if you will. Even though Pixar's Elemental and The Little Mermaid swam to respectable tallies, no they didn't, by the end of their box office runs, neither lived up to expectations. This part is true. Indiana Jones 5 cost $300 million, becoming one of the most painful flops of the year and a reminder that movies simply shouldn't be that expensive. But none of those headaches compared to the nosedive of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It started with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania and culminated with The Marvels, breaking the wrong kind of records as the lowest grossing installment in the franchise's history. Disney CEO Bob Iger has admitted that the studio has suffered by mistakenly leaning toward quantity over quality. Disney at one point could mint a $1 billion movie by tossing any recognizable property onto the big screen. But this year has proved the company's brand familiarity is no longer enough to get audiences to theaters. The long-reigning box office titan remains well stocked with its arsenal of properties like Marvel, Lucasfilm, and Pixar. However, Disney needs a serious internal reckoning to recapture the sparkle that's been missing from the Magic Kingdom. See, even Variety admits that Disney needs a major overhaul to get back to where they were, but they don't say why, so I will. You see, Disney didn't sacrifice quality at the expense of quantity, as Bob Iger claims. No, that is just an excuse. In reality, they sacrificed quality at the altar of the toxic ideology of diversity, equity, and inclusion, which when forced heralds the death of not just quality, but efficiency and profitability. I believe the saying goes, everything woke turns to shit, and whether they like it or not, Bob Iger and Kevin Feige are proving that to be true. The problem for Disney, though, is that now they can't get themselves out of the ideopolitical quagmire they have gotten themselves into. You see, the challenge for Disney, as we have covered in multiple previous videos, are Disney's activist employees, which are enabled by Disney's DEI corporate policies, which in their modern form were put there by Bob Iger, who in turn is enabled by a board of dilettantes that he himself personally selected. That is why Disney are rock bottom in Hollywood right now. Bob Iger and his board of minions have ruined the company, and there can be no recovery for Disney for as long as they remain. That is what Disney shareholders need to take with them into 2024. For now though, let me know what you think about Disney's 2023 performance and how optimistic you are for their future in the comments.